Good morning. Good morning to you on this beautiful, lovely day. It's good to be back with you. Yes, it is. It's a great day to be alive in the land of the living and in our right mind. And that does not mean that everything is perfect.
That's right.
As long as we're in a fallen world, we're going to have to deal with some situations and circumstances.
Yes, ma'am.
So we just have to prepare ourselves. Hey, going to deal with it and keep on going.
That's right.
So good morning to you, radio listeners. We do have our favorite counselor back, and we're going to talk about some things today.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we are. And before we get into our discussion, though, I do want to share something from the Little Brown Book that says, remember, the mightiest oak was once a little nut that held its ground. Let me repeat it. Remember, the mightiest oak was once a little nut that held its ground. You got to be able to hold your ground. Stable. Don't let the ground shake you, but you keep on moving. Hold your ground. The thought is coming from, though your beginning was small, yet your end will greatly increase. That's coming from Job 8:7. Yes, it is. So good morning to you, radio listeners. We got a lot to talk about today. Yes, we do. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about having an unteachable spirit, broken, caught up in self, and at a fixated state. And sometimes all of this can make you angry.
Yes, it can.
So good morning to you.
Good morning to you. How are you on today?
I'm doing well. I cannot complain.
Good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. We missed you last Tuesday.
Yes, ma'am. And I miss being with you.
All right. We got a lot to talk about. Let's deal with the anger first, because sometimes we can get so comfortable that we think that we're not going to have to deal with everyday life sometimes when it gets a little turbulent. The anger.
Yes. Ooh, Lord, anger is something else. Anger really is an emotion that God has given to us for the purpose of changing something in our lives that we're not satisfied with. That we don't like. But he never meant for it to be destructive. Because I remember the scripture says that anger rests in the bosoms of fools. And I believe that because when you are angry, your executive reasoning is reduced. You cannot see clearly because you're reacting or responding on emotion. You're not using wisdom or logic. And a lot of times we'll react out of our emotions. And then we end up saying or doing something that we regret. And so anger, we're not supposed to flow or behave or function in anger, but we're supposed to allow it to be a motivator to help us change something that we're not satisfied with.
And the scripture even tell us to be ye angry, but sin not. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. You can get angry for a while, but it's that lasting anger now that will really get us in trouble.
That's true.
Because he got anger at people that were selling things in the temple and began to whip them out. But anger can have a positive effect, like you said. You can flip the script and use that anger in a positive way. Let me grab this call. We'll come back.
Okay.
WTWG.
Yes, good morning, Elder Hendricks, and to the dear sister down there. Sure, this morning, good morning to Radio Land. This is Brother Gavin here. Just got our word about 9/11. Went in at 7:02 on the campus, and came out the bathtub and just hearing this good lesson. I mean, it's the topic y'all have about anger. All of us are guilty because me, myself, number one, I talk about me in a minute. I don't know about you. I know about Robert Gavin. I talk about me in a minute. I'm guilty of anger, and I ask the Lord to help me, in that area. But like you just said, anger, when they were selling doves in the temple, he said, "This is my Father's house, and you have turned to the den of thieves." We can use like anger in a positive way to not just lash out in a ugly way, but talk to them in love, and because sometimes the devil would tempt us to use anger in the wrong way. It reminds me of 2 Chronicles chapter 21. I'll be teaching out this tonight. We had a Sunday school Sunday. Remember when the devil tempted David to number the people of Israel, 1,004 people. Mm-hmm. And the Lord sent an angel there and put a plague on Israel because what David did. He numbered the people of Israel. Satan tempted him to do that. And the devil would tempt us to be angry as well with anger. Mm-hmm. He would tempt us to be angry as well with anger. But the devil will get us in trouble. He gave David in trouble. Mm-hmm. He would number the people of Israel in 2 Chronicles chapter 21. And he had to sit in sackcloth and ashes and went to Onas and built the altar on the threshing floor. And then the Lord told the angel, "Put your sword back in your sheath and hold off your plagues over Israel." Mm-hmm. But he gave David 3 choices to be punished. So, my mother used to say this, Elder Henry, when the devil gets in trouble, he'll laugh at us. But all we do is the Lord to help us. And me, myself, I want the Lord to help me. Because none of us are perfect.
That's true.
We're striving. 1 Corinthians 50 said we die daily. If anybody think they're so holy, they need to be in heaven with Jesus now. Mm-hmm. We die daily. It's a dying process. So thank y'all so much. Have a great day. Wonderful show. And I said, Mr. Robert, I salute you. I hope you call in with some of your great wisdom. I want to hear from you today. God bless you. Bye-bye.
God bless you.
All right. Mm-hmm. All right. Bye-bye. All right. Anger. I was saying, too, you can use anger in a positive manner. This woman, son had got killed by a drunk driver. Mm-hmm. She was very angry. So what she did, she developed the organization MAD. And MAD stands for Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Mm-hmm. So she turned it and used it in a positive direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was wonderful. That was a good way, too, for her to process her anger. Not only her anger, but her grief. Mm-hmm. And that loss, and turn it into something to help communities. Mm-hmm. Take a stance against drunk driving. Also, that organization also has released resources for helping individuals who struggle with alcoholism. Most people who drive under the influence like that often suffer from alcoholism, mm-hmm. and they've been suffering from that particular mental condition for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So you can take that anger and turn it into a positive emotion.
Yes, ma'am, you can.
And that's the way to do it, because the enemy wants us to get caught up in it. Mm-hmm. That we would not do those positive things that we could do with anger.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And that's the thing, too. I just like Pastor Gavin said, I don't know about nobody else, but I know about me. And my thing is, when I get to the point where I'm extremely angry, I don't like it because it takes me a long time to calm down. Mm-hmm. When I get extremely angry, it takes me about 2 to 3 days to really just calm all the way down. But in that moment, you have to will yourself to do what is right. Mm-hmm. Even though you're angry and you're upset with someone. Mm-hmm. So that you can still have a positive outcome. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to admit that you're angry because you are a human being. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't like to admit that they're angry, and they hold it in. And the next thing you know, that emotion starts to attack them mentally. Mm-hmm. They start to suffer from anxiety, depression. Anger is also known to trigger and aggravate certain psychotic disorders.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And so you have to calm down by changing your perspective or replacing the anger-provoking thought in your mind that's producing the emotion of anger.
And one thing too that helps me is to refocus. Because if I sit there and focus on that anger, sometimes it'll make you more angry.
Yes, it will.
So I have to refocus my thinking and go out, maybe get out of the house or go somewhere and do something positive, or even talk with some other individuals. It has a way of allowing that anger to come on out, that you don't let that anger get pent up.
Yes, ma'am. It's very dangerous. It's destructive. It can also cause somatic symptoms, psychosomatic symptoms, to where that anger can manifest in the form of a physical illness.
Wow. That's getting pretty serious now. So, and anger really can cause and affect your health.
Yes, it can. I've known individuals that have become so angry that they actually had a stroke.
I've known some to have a heart attack because that anger was so severe.
Yes. Extreme anger, because what it does is it increases your blood pressure and your heart rate. Now your entire cardiovascular system is under stress. And then if you already have several health conditions, that's just more stress you're putting on your cardiovascular system.
So you're saying one reaction or one action causes other reactions.
Yes, ma'am.
That start taking you in a negative direction. So people have to get a grip on anger before it causes them to lash out, because that's how sometimes people get killed.
That's extremely right.
They get.
That's right. That is right. That is true.
So sometimes you deal with it and you walk away.
Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes try not to stay there until you it starts just getting the best of you.
That's right.
And they say exercise is a deterrent for anger.
It sure is. Exercise is very good for symptoms, emotional and mental symptoms. It is very, very effective because the repetition in it, the smoothness of your movements is very soothing to your mind. It changes your thoughts, so therefore it changes your emotions and how you process and act out on that anger.
So, even when a person is being tested sexually, maybe, you're in the heat of a moment or whatever. Some people say it's good to just go and take a shower. So sometimes you got to even deal with the body to deal with anger, the physical side of it.
Yes. You have to do something to calm your physical body. And usually mental exercises, I like to recommend cognitive behavior therapy exercises, such as imagery and relaxation exercises, which is what we call stress inoculation, because it helps you to change your thoughts and calm your body so that your body won't be under any physical stress.
Hold on, caller. Let me grab this other call. WTWG.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored, and it is such a joy to just be sitting down and listening to this broadcast this morning.
It's good to hear your voice. I've been missing your voice.
Well, a lot of times I be busy, but I want to say, I got angry about these loose dogs in my neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am.
And the old me wanted to rise up. And the Lord told me to close my gate. My house is fenced with a gate. So I didn't really need to say nothing to the people I did say something about one of them has a puppy, and the puppy doesn't understand about yards that hasn't been mowed. And all these critters that come from up under those leaves. So I talked so nice. I surprised myself. I said, you need to be careful with your puppy because he doesn't know about all this stuff on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and it'll get all over him and he'll become sick because they got on me a couple of years ago because I was being nice and cleaning a yard and I had to go to therapy.
Oh, my.
With the nerve in my feet. But when I get angry, I don't stay in the house. I go outside and do something. Like this morning, before my sister came over here, I had cleaned up the end of the street. And so if you go outside, like you say, don't sit there. Go outside and clean up. It's something you can do in the neighborhood. And then I tell you, it's best to talk. Because one time, I got angry. And I went to the doctor about an hour later. My blood pressure was 192 over 92.
I believe it.
And that wasn't nothing but the grace of God because I could have had a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And we can, go ahead.
And it's teaching me that whenever I get stressed out about anything, to just go outside is something you can do if it's nothing but the right leaves. And God will teach you. You won't have to get in an argument with anyone because even like this morning is trash pickup day. I went and carried the neighbors, they young people, and I carried their bin out to the street. And when the maintenance people ran, I pushed it back up. And guess what? The chain was on the gate, but they did not have it left over, so those dogs couldn't get out.
Okay, I see.
God intended for me to do that so I could left that chain over so the dog can't get out.
Yes, ma'am.
God wants a purpose for you to do something. So I just praise God for each of you and don't stay in the house and talk about it. But when you pray and get on your knees, God gonna tell you who you need to repent to.
That's right. That's right.
And you're right. You're right.
And I thank you for all the years because everything that you taught me is in fruition now. But even though you know the old man want to rise up, and like Pastor Gavin said, none of us are perfect.
That's right.
We will always be tempted. But I thank God that I remember the heart attacks I had. So I don't want to go through that anymore. And I definitely don't want to have a stroke because I got to speak the word of God. So you pray much for me, and I'll be praying for you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving us a call.
All right, then. All right.
Yes.
Bye-bye. Let me see who else we got on the line.
Okay.
WTWG.
Good morning to both of you. You have me on the line.
Good morning.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Robert.
Pretty good. Is it coming through pretty clearly?
Pretty good right now.
Okay. It will be good. Well, listen, I just want to say, the people say that when you stay angry, it's like driving your car without oil in the tank. Without oil. In other words, you burn the engine up in it, so as you burn your brains if you stay angry too often. It's best to try to stay pleased and pleasant. I think that's the best medicine for you. But listen, this is National Teachers Week, Appreciation Week, a month, I think. And one thing I say, good teachers come second only to good parents, because both of you had children based on what I infer from your implications. And after you sent the earliest people, you send your children to teachers, and they have more daytime hours during the week with teachers than they do the parents. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
And good teachers make good students, help make good students. So the teachers, that's a hard job though, and you have to deal with so many. Your parents have to deal with just their children, but teachers have to deal with so many different personalities and children from so many levels of economic and social conditions. So again, they deserve your praise and not like you praise God, but they deserve you telling them that you appreciate them if you're parents or grandparents who have children with teachers. And please please cooperate with the teachers to help make better children, because children become adults, and adults are the ones who inhabit the households and the system. So again, I want to thank all the teachers. I was one for 27 years, never had a problem with students, nor with parents, nor with my supervisors. And it was the best job I could have had. It wasn't paid as much as other jobs, but I am almost 89 and I'm still running around and talking and doing and still love children and love people in general. And Minister Hendricks, thank you for allowing me to be long.
All right then, Mr. Robert, you have a great day.
And you too, Ms. Kenya.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, we're going to get back to our subject here too, we start off talking about anger, but we're going to move on down the line too, because it is saying about anger, we need to change the scene. When you're angry, do something different.
Yes, you need to, because see, if you find something else to do, it's going to shift your thoughts from the thing that's provoking your angry emotion to something else. And it needs to be something constructive, that in order to accomplish that goal or to complete that task, you have to be completely mentally and psychologically invested. And so it's the mother that called in earlier when she was saying find something to do. That's very important, because it's like applying a replacement behavior to help take your mind off of the thing that has provoked your anger.
And they say that even about depression, you know, when you're depressed, you kind of like got all your thoughts focused on yourself and your problem. But if you get up and go help somebody else, that'll take your mind off of you, and you'll find some type of satisfaction in helping someone else, that you won't have time to be depressed.
That's right. That's right.
So we are talking about also having we're talking about what is type of interference right there, but unteachable spirits. We're going to talk about unteachable, brokenness, caught up in self, and fixated. I don't know what was that type of wave that just came through. But unteachable, when a person is unteachable, what you're dealing with?
When a person is unteachable, the best thing to do is to back off. You know, after you have given them the wisdom and you've told them what they need to hear in order to help themselves overcome any difficulties that they may be experiencing in their life, and they're not taking heed to what you say, or they're not taking sound advice, or they're not listening to wisdom, you have to back away. Because see, sometimes you have to show people that their need to control a situation is not helping them. You know, sometimes, you know, you have to let people hit a brick wall so that they can see they need to think about something else or consider making a different decision.
Because if you're trying to make somebody do something or make them learn, you'll end up frustrating yourself.
Exactly.
And they are going on with their life.
Exactly. And it's their situation. So you don't need to work harder than the person who is in need of an intervention. You know, you don't want to work harder than the person that needs the help, the actual help.
Because if you are trying so hard to get them, you wish they would see this, you wish they would see that, you can put your life on hold.
That's right.
Caught up in the problem.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, that can lead to codependency. When you're trying to force a person to make some changes that you know they need to make, even though you know the changes that they need to make, until they're ready to do that, to listen to sound wisdom, they're not going to make that change.
Let me grab this call. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
How are
Good
you?
morning.
Doing well. You know, we're talking about anger this morning. You know, I thought about the fact that anger seems to really, really deteriorate a person's health. I have a good friend who was angry with his daughter, And he was angry because she was in college and she got pregnant. But he didn't seem to want to forgive her, and he didn't seem to want to talk to her. He didn't want to let go of the anger. He was angry because he had all these big plans for her. But I told him, I said, look, you need to let go of that anger because it's, you're wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
Wasting time that you could have spending with your child. And I said, you got a grandchild on the way. So I said, stop wasting time on all this anger.
That's right.
A few months down the road, he was diagnosed with cancer.
My Lord.
And I honestly believe it was connected to all of that anger that he was refusing to let go of, and he was refusing to just forgive her.
Mm.
But now that his time may be shortened, he's beginning to try to let go of some of it.
I see.
And I really believe that, holding on to anger can really, really deteriorate your health.
Mm-hmm. I sure can.
I believe that. One preacher said these three, anger, stress, and bitterness, can cause you to have all types of physical ailments.
Mm-hmm.
Anger, stress, well, he said unforgiveness. Anger, unforgiveness, and bitterness, and the stress was included in there somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
can cause you all types of physical ailments.
Yes, ma'am. It can. And when we don't forgive, what happens is the Lord turns us over to the tormentors. And you become tormented mentally, emotionally, and physically. Now you don't have any spiritual covering when you refuse to resolve your anger and forgive.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, because you don't have any spiritual covering, Satan can attack you with any and all types of diseases.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's always best to try to get rid of it and forgive and move forward.
That's right.
So with this spirit of anger, do a person feel like they justified by having this sense of control by being angry? Are you really controlling anything?
Yes.
No.
Whether you're asking if they have that sense of
Control.
They think they're justified.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It does seem like he felt justified, because he had spent so much money educating this child and giving her everything she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But, I told him, she's an adult. You can't make decisions for adults, no matter how much we want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, you need to forgive her and move on because you are wasting time. I said, I know this from experience. That's wasted time that you'll miss out on with your loved one.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I think it even affected the relationship he had with the grandchild after the grandchild came.
Mm.
So I constantly encouraged him, look, try to let go of any anger and bitterness because that is wasted time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was really, really impacting his health.
Yes, I can certainly agree. That was some great wisdom that you tried to pour into him. But when it's almost like he feels as though she had done something to him personally.
Right.
But she's the one who's reaping the consequences of that.
It was about her life. It was more about his life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfair.
That's right.
And they say even when a woman is bitter or angry in the house, that's going to change that atmosphere of that home. And sometimes that bitter spirit can even start being projected on the children.
Yes,
That's
it can.
So you have to deal with it, or else it will deal with you and really have you living a low life.
Yes, ma'am.
Not happy, not fulfilled.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
Right.
If you don't deal with it,
it's almost like it just totally warped his personality from who he used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it impacted everything, I think. it even impacted his relationship with God.
Oh, yes.
And when that happened, that person has now picked up a spirit of anger. You know, you can initially start off being angry, but when you pick up a spirit of anger, that's that long-lasting anger that's designed to take over your life.
Yes.
That's why Jesus said, don't let the sun go down on your anger. He was saying, get rid of it. Get rid of it.
That's true, because of what it can do.
Right. And even after he was diagnosed and he started treatment, you know, when I was called to check on him, he would never have anything positive to say. It's just like it had poisoned his body, poisoned his mind, poisoned his spirit, just everything. And anytime you asked him how he's doing, it was always negative. So I said, look, you know, you are totally different from who you used to be. And he began to work on that. Began to really work on it. And you know, he says, well, I don't feel good, but I'm going to say I'm doing okay. Finally has progressed at least to that point to where he says, I'm okay. Because this negative, it was like a poison to his body and his mind, his spirit, everything.
It really was. It really was. And it will become something that will try to control our lives if we don't control it.
That's true.
That's
true.
Yeah. But I just wanted to share that. You all be blessed.
You too.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
All right. So getting rid of that anger, it got to be done.
Yes, ma'am.
It just got to be done.
Yes, ma'am. Because it's not hurting the other person that you're angry with. It's hurting you, which is why forgiveness is so important. You know, they say it's like unforgiveness is like drinking poison yourself and expecting someone else to die from it.
Yeah, and our teacher taught on Wednesday night that you got to forgive yourself too. A lot of times we do focus on forgiving others, but sometimes you got to forgive yourself so that you can move on too.
That's true. It's more or less for you and not the other person. You need to forgive the forgiveness so that you can be free. Well, you forgive someone else so that you can be free.
And then even if I do something that it was detrimental and I'm sorry about it and it keep coming back to my mind, I wish I had not done that. I got to get to a point that I forgive myself so that I can release myself from that failure.
That's true.
All right. We talked about unteachable, being unteachable and broken and caught up in self. Now, when you put all those together, what are you looking at?
You're looking at disease, dysfunction, and no opportunity for change. You know, you're looking at destruction. When you put all of those together, I hear destruction.
Or that someone might destroy somebody else if they're caught up in those types of spirits.
That's right. And you know, the strangest form of anger I have ever seen in my life is road rage. You know, I've seen people get out of a car, walk up to another car swearing and cursing and threatening to physically harm the other person in traffic. And it can't possibly, that level of anger cannot possibly be about what has happened in traffic in that moment. I believe that people are carrying anger for other reasons. Some other things have happened to them that's caused them to be angry. And it's like that traffic situation is the straw that breaks the camel's back. And they look for an opportunity to unleash it on someone.
Yes. That's why it's not good to get up under too much pressure. You got to find a way to release that pressure before you unleash that on somebody else. If you're having problems at home, You know, sometimes the individual want to kick the dog and everything, but deal with yourself internally.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
So let's look at diffusing anger before we move forward. What are some of the things individuals can do when you feel pressure? You're about to blow your top because you're angry now. Because sometimes you say some things when you're angry that you wish you hadn't said.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. As I had briefly started mentioning earlier, I do recommend cognitive behavior therapy interventions, and we call this stress inoculation, where you're doing some imagery where you imagine going to a place and you cannot take any bad memories, no bad thoughts, no bad feelings. We call this a grounding technique in EMDR and in trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, where you imagine going to a place where no bad thoughts, no bad memories can go along with you. But when you go into this scene, it needs to be a place where you dream of taking a vacation. It could be a place of tranquility. And most people always imagine a beach, and they're listening to the waves, and they're sitting in the sand, and they're feeling the warmth of the sun on their skin. And what you do is, when you go into the scene, you have to go all the way in, remembering what you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. Because if you go into the scene with all of your senses, what it does is it shifts the thought that's provoking the anger and the consequential stress.
And you know, sometimes you really do need to take a vacation.
Yes.
Not just in your mind, really a real vacation.
Real vacation. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. And so it helps to do that particular scenery exercise, because when you go in with all of your senses, with what you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell, you begin to forget about what it is that's causing you to be angry, because you're too involved and invested in that scene. Also, I recommend relaxation exercises where you start to do muscle flexing, starting with your toes, your ankles, your calf muscles, moving up to your knees, your thighs, and you're flexing the muscles in your abdomen all the way up to the crown of your head. And you do that while you're breathing in and out at the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the only thing you do is listen to the sound of your breathing as you do the muscle reflection and the muscle tensing and releases. And we call those grounding techniques.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to take care of yourself. And anger is the emotion, a negative emotion that needs to be dealt with before it deals with you, and not allow it to get out of control.
Mm-hmm.
Not to pick up a spirit of anger.
Mm-hmm.
That's that long-lasting anger where, you know, people even from their childhood can still be angry about some things that happened in their childhood, and you cannot go back there.
You can't fix that. And I've seen that happen. So you waste your whole life being upset about something that happened when you were a child, instead of resolving it in therapy, mm-hmm. so that you can live a happy life and not have to reread that chapter in your life, in that book again.
So you're saying certain types of anger can get you stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Stuck at what happened.
Yes, ma'am. And when you get stuck, what happens is the enemy comes into your soul, and you know your soul is your thoughts, your feelings, and your will. He sits down in the inside of your soul, and now he's controlling all of your thoughts. Just like Miss Jane Ellis was saying, it's like that anger that her friend had towards his daughter had poisoned his mind, his spirit, and his body. Mm-hmm. Because anger and unforgiveness will cut off your communication with God. That means if your spirit man is cut off in communication from God, it's going to affect your soul. That means your soul is not going to obey the unction of the Holy Spirit. And if it doesn't obey now, your body is in danger of being attacked. And that's what led to his cancer.
Mm-hmm. So therefore, you cannot even allow other people to lead you on. You know, man, you ought not take this, or she did this or he did that. Sometimes people can coerce you.
They sure can.
And get you to show out. And they things that they wouldn't do themselves, but they're pushing you up to do it and get you in trouble. And now you're wishing you had not.
Exactly.
So you have to take control of that.
That's true. It's a lot of people in Parchment Penitentiary because they would not get control of their anger. Anger leads to resentment. Resentment leads to bitterness, and bitterness leads to murder.
That you get in the revengeful stage. And that's a dangerous state to be in, that you want to get revenge. Somebody else did you wrong, but now you want to go and do them wrong.
And that's something.
Yeah.
And spite will always turn in on you. You become the victim of the trap that you set for that other person. In the Greek, the word trap comes from the word scandalon, which is where we get the word scandal from. Scandal means trap. Now you've gotten yourself in a trap to be tormented by Satan and his demons. Because once you open that door with anger and bitterness, now you open the door for some other spirits to move in and start taking over your soul. So what we're seeing is that anger is taking you down, 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 unless you get a grip on it. You're going down. That's right. That's true. You gotta get a grip on it. We're going to look at how to diffuse this anger. Let me grab this call. We'll come back to that, and then we got to go because we got Elder Mitch on the inside. Good morning, caller.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
I would like to say, when you really got that relationship with the Lord and you see his promises and you believe his promises, you know, we got to let go, because too many grandparents and parents trying to live their lives through their children, and they get hurt, and then they get sick. And so it's not a money thing. It's about obeying God and listening to God, and he will take your trouble heart and restore you.
Yes, he will.
So that's how we can diffuse a lot of things. Stop trying to be God in our children's lives, or whoever, or whatever. And for God's sake, don't let them put the guilt on you that you are the reason they're in the shape that they in. We must take all our cares to the Lord and leave them there.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for those comments. And you're so right. You're so right. That's right. All right. We're going to count it down here. Now, how can we diffuse the anger after what she has just said?
Change your thoughts. Because if you change your thoughts, you will change how you feel and how you react or respond out of your anger. Change your focus. Find something constructive to do. Do imagery exercises, imagining being somewhere else, and also doing relaxation exercises. And also, if someone is perpetually making you angry, put up some safe boundaries. You may need to separate from them for a while or permanently. And you know, sometimes the Lord is trying to teach us something through that relationship. That's true. What you trying to show me? That I allow this person to make me angry? That I don't know how to control myself when they push a certain button. We got to know how to control ourselves. That's right. When those certain weak spots are hit. That's true. Because that's a spot where we need to grow in. Exactly. You are right. So we talked about anger, having an unteachable spirit, the brokenness. The enemy comes through that brokenness. And now individual can get caught up in self. And the worst thing to do, though, is to get fixated at all of those places and not growing. When we look at the word fixated, what do you see there? I see no growth. Because what it does is it arrests Fixation will arrest your ability to develop spiritually, emotionally, and psychologically.
Mhm.
You will become stuck within certain stages of development, depending on where you were developmentally at the time of the anger-provoking incident. But what we have to do is use those incidences as opportunities to grow and do something else, rather than to react out of our anger.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes